All right, back with another episode of North Left Sports Podcast, and this week we wanted to divulge into the NBA playoffs a little bit. We're about a week and a half out, and most of the spots are already locked in, but there's a very interesting tight race for the 7-8 seeds in the West, and Golden State can still fall out, but I think that's a little unlikely at this juncture. And then the only spot up for grabs in the East is the 8th seed, and it's pretty much down to two teams with Atlanta and New York, and that's where I want to start with and start the Eastern Conference because I feel like we'll need more time devoted to talk about the Western Conference. So the two teams fighting it out are the New York Knicks and the Atlanta Hawks. Now, obviously, the New York Knicks have the name, they have the quote-unquote star power, and they've been playing better than Atlanta has anyway for about 3-4 weeks. Atlanta, Danny Ferry came out and said he pretty much doesn't even care if they make the playoffs or not, which is very interesting to say openly anyway. I'm sure a lot of GMs, feel that way when they're going to be the A seed and get destroyed by Miami. But Kyle, what team would pose a bigger threat to Miami, assuming Indiana continues to not want to score the ball and that Miami is going to get that number one seed?
I think the biggest threat to Miami right now, besides Indiana, if we had to pick, would be your boys over in Washington.
Really?
I mean, I understand that it's not football where it's any given Sunday, but this is a series-based game as far as when you get to the playoffs, and I think that John Wall could create a lot of mismatch opportunities for those point guards and shooting guards for Miami. I wouldn't want, if I'm Eric Spoelstra, I wouldn't be excited about having Wade cover John Wall in the first round of the playoffs.
Or Bradley Beal, who's been very good this year. And then LeBron's defense has been, I don't want to say bad, but I'll say underwhelming this year so far. I mean, maybe
Wall would wear him out.
Yes,
too.
so if kind of like putting D Rose, how they had LeBron guard D Rose, they only did that in the last fourth quarter pretty much, and LeBron was also 2 years younger. I mean, I don't feel like athletically he's fallen off at all.
No.
And maybe the defensive numbers are low because he's saving himself on defense.
I think so.
But at the same time, you can't just discount what you see, and you can't just assume that defense can pick up 100% back to what it was last year. I mean, if it's 80%, maybe that's all Washington needs to have, get a win or two and at least make it interesting.
That's true.
But based off current standings, they would have to meet them in the Eastern Conference Finals most likely. I don't see them catching Brooklyn, who is 2.5 games up. And speaking of Brooklyn, that 4-5 matchup, Chicago-Brooklyn, could be very intriguing with how way that Brooklyn's been playing since 2014, the new year, and Chicago has been fantastic lately. And both these teams are kind of defensive grinders. Thibodeau can coach anyone. Jason Kidd has been interesting, but they've gotten really good at spacing the floor, moving the ball around. And if you look at even if you look just at the box scores, you can see that at random times, Joe Johnson will lead the team in assists, or Paul Pierce, or Deron Williams, or Sean Livingston, or Blatch will try to get in there and have 4 or 5 assists. So that just is an easy way to see how the ball movement is going in terms of not just having Deron Williams dominate the ball in half-court sets. So Chicago-Brooklyn, what do you think is going to happen there?
I think that's one of the more intriguing matchups as well. I think that it's going to be interesting to see how those assists translate to the defense of the Chicago Bulls and see what Thibodeau tries to do to counteract that. I think that it's going to really come down to the bench scoring of both of these teams. I mean, because we all know what the starting cast of these teams can do, but way back at the start of the season, or I should say in the offseason, the Bulls brought in a guy like Dunleavy to be that type of role player off the bench and maybe hit some big threes in these types of games. So they've always had a really good ability to foreshadow themselves, So that's a kind of an intriguing addition that I'll look to see, how he performs as far as this series is concerned.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't expect him to dominate the game or anything, but if that guy can hit 5 open threes, that's a huge tidal wave as far as momentum in the game.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting for me to see what Chicago's crunch time 5 is, what their closeout 5 is, because
Interesting.
I assume they're going to have to play Augustine for that offensive punch. He's one of the only players on this team that can kind of create his own shot. So Butler's a lock. Noah's a lock. So do we bunch Boozer and play Gibson, and is Dunleavy the shooter at the 3, or do you try to play Kirk Heinrich with Augustine for that extra defensive value, and Butler moves to the 3 and you lose the shooting? It's going to be interesting to see what they do.
I think it would be very hard for them to take Heinrich off the court. I think that's a guy they want on the court.
Veteran presence, defensive leader.
Smart with the ball.
Very good defender. He can shoot as well, but he's definitely fallen off in that category, I feel like, the last couple of years.
Yeah, and speaking of Dunleavy, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in one of those 2 spots, like you were saying. I think that it's going to really come down to, on a night-to-night basis, who's kind of got the momentum there, because I would expect that Gibson would be in over Boozer in that crunch time 2-minute scenario, but at the same time, if Boozer's playing really well and you need that and nobody else on your offense is really getting it done, then maybe that's who you got to go to in the post to get you some points in that fourth quarter. Yeah. So it's just kind of interesting the way they mix and match.
And both these teams can go big and small, because Brooklyn could run out KG, Blatch, Tetlovich, Pierce, and Deron Williams if they wanted, and have a really big lineup. Or they could go super small and go like KG, Paul Pierce, Joe Johnson, Livingston, Deron Williams. So they have a lot of options too. And I think I would lean Brooklyn just because of their shooting. They could get really hot, and Brooklyn's been playing fantastic lately since, basically the start of 2014. But which team would Miami not want to see in that second round, Brooklyn or Chicago?
I definitely think that if you had asked them, they'd say Chicago. But I think that in the back of their minds, this is the team they wouldn't want to play.
Yeah, I feel like Brooklyn would be a harder matchup, but they want to avoid Chicago just because of the history and the defense and the tenacity.
I feel like Chicago, you pretty much know you're going to win because there's no way they can hang with you.
They just can't score enough, yeah.
But Brooklyn could literally get out in front of you in a hurry, and Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce willed teams against Miami for several years, and so I do think that that's something you definitely can't dismiss.
Yeah, and Brooklyn
especially, like you said, with Joe Johnson taking so much responsibility of ball handling. Like, I think that that's something that we should have seen for a long time now.
Well, he did it in Atlanta for a while, but now the ball movement, he has other people that can also do it, because Deron, Sean Livingston, Paul Pierce, Joe Johnson can all lead a team in the half court. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's certain guys you want to do it more, like Joe Johnson, because he's younger and he can kind of get his more shot, because Deron Williams is not a max player anymore, pretty much. But also, in terms of facing Miami, they have so many versatile defenders they can just throw up LeBron and Wade. Like Pierce, Joe Johnson, Andre Kirilenko, Sean Livingston, Deron Williams can all match up with both of them. They can do a lot of rotations, and KG can be in the back row, calling the defensive sets, doing what he does, being the communicator, grabbing rebounds, hitting 19-foot jumpers, not doing too much, playing 20 minutes a game.
Well, and Garnett matches up incredibly well with Miami to be the center.
And with Bosch.
They're just like such similar players.
Yeah.
Like, Bosch has a little bit more range, but besides that, and obviously the
age issue.
Prime is definitely an issue. But you're going to be throwing Kevin Garnett in for
24 minutes.
Maybe 30 if you're just begging the old man knees, but still.
And they've been doing all this without KG.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, if he isn't even KG
he might
anymore.
not even play that much.
If he's not KG anymore, which is possible, then you have Blatch, who is an offensive firework, and then Plumlee, who has developed into so far a very, versatile center who could, guard Bosch a little bit if he has to. And then Kirilenko is big enough and lengthy enough to probably get the job done as well.
Yeah, no.
I mean, if you had to.
He's a tall guy. He could definitely get it done. What'll be interesting to see is if we don't see any more unique combinations, like maybe Joe Johnson, Deron Williams, Kirilenko lineup. That also features, will they actually use Reggie Evans at all? I mean, do you even see him playing 2 to 3 minutes in a series?
No, they already released him.
Oh, okay. He's just listed on their roster still.
Yeah, that's why they have Jason Collins, though, as that defensive backup big. I don't think he's going to play at all. I don't think Allen Anderson plays. He's got a little bit of run. I could see Marcus Thornton playing a little bit, but he's so bad defensively and is so wild with his shot selection. I don't think he's going to play much.
No, I don't think he'll.
But
play
if they're down 20, Thornton's a guy they can bring in and have him just light everyone up and catch him back up, kind of like a mini Jamal Crawford that isn't as good. So, the only other thing that I want to bring up from the Eastern Conference is what in the fuck is going on with Indiana. They have just been in a absolute whirlwind of a sinkhole. They can't score the ball. They can't get anything done on offense. Their defensive communication is starting to wane because I think their offensive issues. There's been fighting between George Hill and Lance Stevenson, and Hibbert's calling out players for being selfish. Paul George has been, in my opinion, horrible offensively for about 3 months. Like, they need to get this turned around if they think they can actually challenge Miami and make it anywhere close to what it was last season, because at the moment, the way they're playing, they could lose in the first round. I wouldn't bet on it, but they could, because they just can't score.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't bet on it either. I'm been very surprised by the implosion that they're experiencing there, and I think a lot of it has to do with just team chemistry kind of becoming an issue, like you had mentioned. But I think these are issues that are going to resolve themselves. This is an experienced playoff team. They know how to play together, and I think as soon as they hit the stride in the playoffs, they're going to be able to get right back to where they've always been. I think when you're, I think we've seen this with Miami a few years ago, or at least last year, maybe last 2 years. They start to get complacent towards the end of the season because they know they're good and they know that they're already in their spot. I mean, it'd be nice to have the number one spot.
Miami's won before, though. That's the huge difference.
That's true.
And they have two legit number one go-to options in the fourth quarter, whereas Indiana doesn't have one right now because George hasn't continued that offensive development.
Yeah, I mean, all in all, he's still had a great season, so it's tough to take that away from him and just look at.
Well,
the small
offensively,
sample size.
he has not improved at all, and he's just been as good as he was. Like at the start of the year, he was obviously showed tons of improvement and was turning into a legit number one. People were saying he was the third best player in the league.
Yeah, that's true.
And then he totally has fallen from grace a little bit. And can he rebound? Absolutely. He's still very young. He's still a fantastic defender. Yeah. Like, he can definitely turn it around, but from what I've seen lately, he's definitely fallen from that perch that he had at the start of the year, without question.
That's true, but one of the best things about him is that he's always changed the game through a multitude of factors. And so while he may not be, like, the go-to fourth quarter guy that they necessarily were hoping for this year, because I think that's definitely in his game. I haven't seen him shy away from fourth quarter shots at all. I mean, his effectiveness has definitely been down.
Right.
But he's got, just like James Harden, that syndrome where he's just going to shoot it. It doesn't really matter.
Harden's such a better shooter at this point.
He is, but I mean...
They are similar.
But they also are fearless.
He's not afraid of the moment.
Yeah, not at all. And Paul George is going to rely on good old David West, in my opinion. I think that's going to be their number one option at first in the fourth quarter. They're going to try and work it on the post to him, let him make important veteran decisions, which really actually cost them last year. West made a couple key mishaps in the fourth quarter, but still, I would definitely bank on that strategy again because...
I would say that I'm also concerned about Roy Hibbert offensively. He has not done anything at all. He's a great defender, no doubt. But when you're, 7 foot and supposedly a very dominating low post force, and you're only averaging 7 rebounds a game and 11 points, I don't care how good your team is. That's way too low in my opinion.
Yeah, no, it's not good.
And hopefully that turns around because he was very effective in the first 4 or 5 games against that Miami series, dominating offensively too.
Yeah.
Not counting defense, which he did every game. So that's something that we should keep an eye on. And then my only main concern with Miami right now is, are they too old at this point? Because defensively, as we mentioned with LeBron, the team as a whole has definitely been lacking. I'm very intrigued by Chris Bosh's ability to just hit 3-pointers at the top of the key in the fourth quarter whenever he wants. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So anything you want to add in the Eastern Conference before we spend time in the real conference, the West?
I just think it's going to be interesting playoff matchups. And do you have any comments on how you want to see those last two spots shape up, or do you really care if Atlanta gets
for the
in?
East?
Would you rather just see New York?
I
just
would
'cause it's
much
New York?
rather see New York because then you have the star power of Melo. My least favorite player, J.R. Smith, can get hot and take 43 pointers in a game. And I feel like they could win a game against Miami. I don't feel like Atlanta has any shot to win a game against Miami.
No.
So, in terms of basketball competitiveness, I don't think any team has a shot to beat Miami realistically. But New York could win a game. I don't think Atlanta can.
Yeah, it'd be fun to see Melo drop 42 in the Garden.
Yeah, I know he's having
because.
he's having these shoulder issues, and he's starting to lag at the end. But I think people hopefully won't forget how incredible he's been all year. He's been a top 10 player this season without question. He's had maybe his best season ever, and I just hope that he stays in New York and they build a win around him. Because I really do like when players stay with the same team for a very long time. I know he's already been on Denver before, but he forces his way out. But it's nice to see players win with their team, like Dirk, who has a title. He's never left Dallas. Duncan's never left. Kobe's never left.
Right.
You can still be an all-time great and leave, but it has that extra added, fandom part where you're attached to that city forever as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and it almost, when you have an athlete like that, it almost carries you to the next generation as well, as a fan. Because you're like, you actually got like 17 or 18 or 14 years of continued excellence, so it actually hooks you on a franchise. Whereas in this day and age, player X gets on player team or team X for 4 years, and then you switch your team as soon as they switch.
Exactly. So
It's cool.
moving on to the Western Conference. As of right now, there are no games tonight on Monday, April 7th, because we have the national title game between UConn and Kentucky, which is going to be a very good game. But we're here to talk about the NBA, and the projected first-round matchups as of right now are San Antonio and Phoenix, Oklahoma City, Dallas, the Clippers, Golden State, and Houston, Portland. Before we get into who's actually going to make the playoffs, just what matchup out of the projected ones as of right now is the most interesting to you, Kyle Smith?
You said it would be
It's San Antonio, Phoenix, Oklahoma City, Dallas, Clippers, Golden State, Houston, Portland. Which first-round matchup is the most intriguing to you as a fan?
I think Houston, Portland.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest with you, I just think that those are two teams that could definitely reach the finals.
Really? I don't
yeah.
think Portland has a shot.
Well, there's no reason why they can't. They have their center leads the league in defensive rating. He also not leads the league in defensive rating, but he's in the top 10. He leads the league in player efficiency for offense, which is great because they never run plays to him. He's just been making banks all season. I just like their outline. I think that they have a lot of go-to options in the fourth quarter that Houston might not necessarily have, even though Houston has Howard and James Harden and Parsons can hit open shots. I think that LaMarcus Aldridge is more of a slow the game down, post up, score, and those are the type of players that you can't really disrupt their rhythm very much. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whereas Houston wants to get out and run. If Portland can do anything to slow down the tempo, I think that there's no reason why they couldn't beat almost any team this year.
Well, I don't even think they want to slow down the tempo that much. I mean, Houston scores 107.1 a game on average, and Portland scores 106.6. So with Damian Lillard leading the league in three-point attempts, and Nicholas Batum as a point forward, and Wes Matthews having a very good year shooting, I think Aldridge has also attempted the most field goals in the league. I know he was leading before he missed 10, 12 games, so he probably isn't up there anymore. It's probably Durant now, but before he got hurt, he was leading the league in field goal attempts.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to run it, but I also feel like they aren't afraid to slow it down in the half court. So,
which is what they like to do in the fourth.
Right.
And I think that's what makes them a great team, is that they like to run, mix it up. And I just think that it's going to be really just an incredible series. Like, I want to see Harden and Lillard go at it. I would be curious to see if they match up defensively.
No.
I'd be disappointed as
They
a
would
fan
not.
if they don't.
Lillard's too small. They would not put Lillard on. Every
6'4".
once in a while they might. He's not C6'3". And Harden, he's just...
6'5"?
Yeah, but he plays a lot taller than Lillard.
Yeah.
And especially when you have really good defenders like Batum and Wing and Wes Matthews, I think that they're just going to match up position for position with these teams because, Jeremy Lin, if Beverly's out because he has that knee issue and he is likely to miss the playoffs. Jeremy Lin is someone you need to have a decent defender on. Like, he can score in the half court. He can get to his spot.
True.
So you just put Lillard on him, West on James Harden, put Batum on Parsons because they're both pretty lengthy and they can, deal with each other. Whoever they have at 4, I would just put Aldridge on him because that way you can keep him out of foul trouble. And then you just put Lopez, who's a very good defensive player, on Howard. And then things change, obviously, when you have different matchups. But for me, I'm most intrigued by the Clippers and Golden State. These two teams hate each other. Bogut and Griffin might kill each other one day. You have Chris Paul, Curry. You have Iggy, who can run around and try to guard everyone at the same time. You have Mark Jackson. Is he going to get fired? Is he not? Are those rumors really true? I hope not.
That'd be crazy.
I mean, David Lee's kind of hurt right now. Is he going to play?
Yeah.
Is Harrison Barnes going to come out of nowhere and have another good playoff series? Is Doc Rivers really going to take this team into the finals in his first year? They've shown definite improvement. I think that
it has the makings of a great series.
Yeah, there are still concerns for me in terms of when this team gets down in the fourth quarter. Are they going to hack a DeAndre Jordan? Is Blake going to hit his free throws? Is Jamal Crawford going to go psycho and start shooting 40-foot three-pointers? Those are the things I'm concerned about. And I don't know if you feel like, are they more of a threat to San Antonio than Oklahoma City? Because I feel like they have, they could beat Oklahoma City and beat San Antonio, and I don't know if Oklahoma City gets to San Antonio, they can beat them for sure. They do it all the time. They're just so fast and athletic. But I feel like that the Clippers can beat Oklahoma City easier than they can beat San Antonio.
I agree with you 100%.
Because it's all about matchups in the West.
Yeah, and San Antonio is just the team that they match up the best with. Honestly, I think would be Houston.
Well, I would say Portland.
Or Portland.
Yeah.
One of those two
teams.
So
when they, in the second round, the 4-5 matchup right now is Houston-Portland. So they face San Antonio. And obviously those two teams can score. But San Antonio people just assume they're a slowed down team with Duncan, and they're not.
Oh, they
But
run all
on
the
defensively, they're still that old school Duncan team pretty much, and they're holding teams at 97 points per game. They've been fantastic all year in that setting. And it's going to be very intriguing to see what San Antonio does. They just went on this crazy run where they won 19 in a row. They've lost one time since Leonard came back from injury. Tony Parker's had a bad year, and it hasn't really mattered at all. Duncan's still Duncan. Ginobili has been very good this year. Bellinelli, who they picked up from Chicago, has been one of the best shooters in the league.
Gosh, he's been so
And
close.
it's just going to be very fun to figure out if they can get back to the finals, face Miami again. We have another classic finals with those two teams, because right now they're pretty much the two favorites because they're number one seeds, and obviously they did it last year.
Yeah, to go back to your Golden State Clippers matchup, I think that'd be awesome. I'd love to see Bogut get in the ear of Griffin and just start getting them all revved up. That being said, I don't think Golden State's deep enough to really make a difference as far as the series is concerned. They'll probably win 2 games, but I don't think they're going to be... I just think that the Clippers are too tough and too deep right now.
I don't think Chris Paul loses to Golden State.
Yeah,
I don't think he wants that.
He's better defensively than Curry.
Yes.
And he's better offensively than Curry. Although Curry can score better, but he doesn't set up his teammates.
I don't know if he can score better. He's definitely a better shooter. But Chris Paul
That's true.
I mean, he's fantastic percentage-wise in those mid-range jumpers, and then, in terms of running the offense, there's a reason they have the best offense in the league from a points-per-game standpoint.
Yeah, no,
is because Chris Paul's running the show.
They're awesome.
I think that they are second or first in efficiency right there with Dallas. And if Chris Paul didn't miss, those 3 weeks, they probably would be first if they're not right now.
Right.
So, and then the defense has definitely improved a little bit this year. Blake took another, step this year as a player. DeAndre has been a lot better, and they're, finally figuring out, hey, let's just throw lobs at DeAndre all the time.
Yeah, no,
He
seriously.
can out-jump everyone.
Yeah, that was, just a great revelation for them. And Doc Rivers has turned him back into the psycho beast that we all thought he could have been.
Yeah, there's a reason that he should have been leading the league in rebounds ever since his rookie year.
Yeah, he's amazingly gifted, and I think that those are the teams that you're really asking yourself about as far as the finals are concerned. is San Antonio, Oklahoma, and LA. I think that Houston or Portland has a pretty good chance to just make some noise. That being said, we talked about this earlier. Phoenix has a legitimate shot to make a little bit of noise, just because they're almost too young to know any better.
Yeah, they're not
and
afraid.
That's always a
because,
dangerous aspect in any sport, because they just don't care. You know, they're gonna play hard and they're gonna play their game and they're gonna play fundamental. And honestly, to even think that Goran Dragic was like getting shopped like 2 years ago, and to look at where he is now,
they traded
it's just
nothing for
crazy.
him pretty much.
Yeah, it just
and then Eric Bledsoe, since he came back, has been fantastic, and he is an absolute terror defensively. He passing lanes up in everyone's face. He's Patrick Beverley, but is an actual threat on offense.
Well, and because of Dragic's emergence, he's really able to continue to do that.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be the lead point guard.
Thing.
Yeah. And it also helps Dragic.
That was one of the most sad things I've ever witnessed, is his defense being good and then being non-existent.
Yeah, exactly. But and help Dragic, he also can stay fresh offensively, and Bledsoe can lead in the half quarter, push the break, and he can utilize his very good shooting and his smarts. And they're very deep. The Morris twins can score. They're complementary. Channing Frye's been hitting his shots. Gerald Green might be like the best heat check guy in the league now.
Dude.
And that dude is still crazy athletic. He's turned himself into a fantastic 3-point shooter.
Yeah,
and that's something he could be the most improved player.
If Lance hadn't already stole that earlier in the year, but which
he's been horrible for
I know, for the last month.
And then with the team being really bad, that's going to hurt all of them in the voting for awards.
Do you think that Lance Stevenson may be that selfish player, by the way?
He could be a selfish player.
I mean, when Hibbert said that,
that's who I think that he was talking about, Lance and Evan Turner.
Ah, okay. Because that's who I thought was Lance.
Yeah.
I was like, it just seems to me like Lance used to be that guy who, I'm sorry to go back to the Pacers here, but it seemed like he was that guy who, took advantage of his opportunities and maybe did like a couple JR plays a game, but they were actually working, so it was all good.
Right. Well,
and now maybe he's trying those JR plays instead of like 2 to 3 times, like
5
to 6, 7.
At the same time, though, if they were winning, no one would be talking about this, and they wouldn't be complaining. So if they go in the first round and they just sweep Charlotte, or Washington, whoever ends up in the 7th spot, assuming they're the 2, then no one's going to care anymore, and everyone's say Indiana's back. So, and speaking about Phoenix, Dallas, Phoenix, and Memphis, let's not forget about them, even though they're not slotted yet, are all really fighting out for the 7, 8, and 9 seeds, trying to figure out who's actually going to get in the game. All of them play each other over their last 5, 6 games. Memphis has a pretty tough schedule, but they also have games against Philly and the Lakers. Dallas has a tough schedule, but they have an easy game. Like, all these teams have tough games and easy games, so it's going to be very interesting to see who actually gets those last couple spots, because they play each other. The last game for Memphis is against Dallas, and I believe that's going to settle the 8th seed. I think Phoenix will get that 7th spot, and I think that San Antonio really wants Dallas in that 8th spot, because they don't want to run into that Memphis train again.
Well, yeah, and Memphis is a slow down, somewhat methodical team that can get out and run too. I don't think they want anything to do with Memphis.
No, no one wants anything to do with Memphis.
They want to destroy Dallas's defense, and they will, and they'll knock the Mavericks out in probably 4 games.
Yeah, see, the thing that
I think the Mavericks take 1 at home, but either way.
The interesting thing with Memphis is, even though they're still not scoring a lot, they're a lot deeper than they used to be, because now they have Costa Koufos, who can come in and spell Gasol a little bit. Ed Davis has improved. John Lure has also improved as a potential stretch 4. But the guy that a lot of people aren't talking about is James Johnson at small forward. He's been an athletic freak and a defensive monster. They have Mike Miller off the bench who can shoot. The Courtney Lee trade was solid. Mike Conley has been a very good player, and they still have Tony Allen as a defensive beast. So, looking at things, they match up really well to San Antonio.
They do.
I mean, it's James Johnson and Leonard to be a fun little athletic jumping match to watch. So, it'll be interesting to see what happens. So, looking at the remaining schedule, Dallas has Utah, San Antonio, Phoenix, and Memphis. Phoenix has New Orleans, San Antonio, Dallas, Memphis, Sacramento. And the Memphis Grizzlies are going to be facing Miami tomorrow, if you're listening to this and I get it up in time. Philadelphia, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and Dallas. So all the schedules are pretty even. They have some tough games. They have some gimmies. It'll just be really interesting to see. So, Kyle, as a Dallas fan, the only likely spots for you to land are 7, 8, 9. Obviously, you don't want to be a 9. It's not like you're a rebuilding team. You don't have a whole bunch of lottery picks.
Yeah.
So, do you want to face San Antonio or Oklahoma City or the Clippers if they get to that second spot?
I'd personally rather, out of all those teams, play the Clippers.
Okay.
I feel like we match up well with them. We like to get out, move the ball. We're really efficient. We score on the outside edge, and that's not their strong suit. I mean, they have perimeter defenders, but they're mainly defensed to make that long run into the finals by having the big men necessary. And OKC would probably be second, San Antonio third. I just think that we'd be destroyed by San Antonio.
See,
They're too efficient on offense for us to compete with them.
I'm the direct opposite, and the reason for this is
We beat OKC.
right, but OKC, Westbrook is still rounding into form. They're so athletic. They have the best player in the league, arguably. They have a guy that can single-handedly beat you 4 straight times.
That's true.
Dirk can maybe do it a game,
Yeah.
but he's not at the point where he can do it.
He's been incredible last month.
But at
So
the same
we'll
time,
see.
he's not taking the volume of shots, and he's not doing those type of things where he could do it 4 times in a row, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would say that the Clippers would be a really tough matchup for you because you have no one to guard Blake Griffin, and Chris Paul would eat Calderon or Monta alive. Now, Monta's fast enough to kind of stay in front of him a bit, but he's not smart enough really to control him. But they also don't really have anyone to throw against Dirk.
Yeah.
But Blake Griffin just fast enough to maybe cover him on the edge. I feel like with San Antonio, they don't have any legit ones that scare you.
Yeah.
Tony Parker's been bad, but he could rebound. But the way he's playing, he doesn't scare me as a point guard.
Yeah.
But obviously, they've been dominating the league, so it's kind of hard to say the best matchup is the team with the best record.
Yeah, no, it'd definitely be interesting to see, but yeah, I mean that's one situation I look at least in that order. I think that this is just going to be a really interesting last 3 games of the season because Dallas and Phoenix and Memphis all essentially kind of get to choose their own fates as long as they win out because they play each other in those last couple games. So that's going to be probably the most exciting part of any fan seasons for these 3 teams unless Phoenix breaks through because I don't really see this is just a year where it's so heavy at the top in the West. Like there's just even if Memphis made the playoffs, we're talking about how they might give San Antonio a run for their money, but I mean, unless Mike Conley turns into a beast in the playoffs.
Well, he's better than Tony Parker, but
he's good,
but
but
the
Parker
issue is
could easily ball out, which
but
negates a lot.
The
of
issue
that.
for Memphis is they just don't have the consistent shooting to score enough with San Antonio.
No outside shooting.
Mike Miller, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, Courtney Lee can get hot, but you don't count on him like you do a Bellinelli and a Ginobili and a Leonard and a Danny Green and Matt Bonner if they want to play him for 4 minutes.
Miller is just so inconsistent, even though he has the ability.
Yeah,
like we waited for him in Miami to do something for like 3 straight seasons until he finally balled out in the finals. Like,
he did it at the right time.
It was 2 straight games.
Yeah.
It wasn't like the whole series or anything, but he just murdered that stretch where it was just 3, 3, 3, and that he'll never be forgotten for that. But that's not a guy that really scares me too much in a series game, but definitely he's got that potential to take over a game if it happens.
Absolutely. So, starting to wrap this up, looking at the Eastern Conference, does anyone besides Miami have a shot to win the title? Miami and Indiana, is that it? Because I say yes. Only those 2 have any shot. Coming out of the East, of course.
I would say that Brooklyn has a shot.
Okay, what percentage? Like 5?
Yeah.
5%?
I'm
if
gonna
not
give
lower?
them 5%.
5%?
And then I give Miami 60%, and then I give Indiana
25?
25.
Yeah, and then maybe
10%
variance.
Maybe like 30 to Indiana, 55 to Miami.
Right.
Just to be respect them.
They can't score, and it's an issue.
Yeah,
so,
no. especially against a team that can.
Does every team that can make the playoffs in the West have a shot to win the title, or can we just throw away, Golden State, Dallas, Phoenix, Memphis? They just have no shot. Because I think you can kind of just throw them away.
I think you could throw them away, but at the same time, so much more fun not
Right.
to.
Well, of course, but at the same time,
you're
I
right.
think I would throw away Portland too.
I would say no. I would say all of those top 5 for me. Maybe even Golden State. I mean, just because it's tough when a team can hit threes.
Right.
Like that.
See, Golden
So-
State's interesting because Draymond Green and Iguodala are legit elite defenders. They are
yes.
both elite defenders.
Bogut
And
as well.
yeah, and then health is an issue with him, and
Yeah.
of course Iggy, but Iggy's been healthy lately. And then they don't even need David Lee. They might even be better without him because then they can play kind of small ball and go Curry, Thompson, Iggy, Draymond, Bogut
Yeah.
as their crunch time 5, and then have Harrison Barnes be the super 6 man.
I like their Steve Blake addition.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they needed to replace Jared Jack from last year, and
Yeah.
they pretty much
they
did
tried
that.
to. I mean, they're completely different, but what he does do is provide more shooting off
And
the bench.
leadership, or a more direction.
He's been there too.
Yeah.
The Jordan Crawford deal didn't work out. Jermaine
No.
O'Neal has been surprisingly effective, and Maurice Spites has been hitting a lot of those mid-range jumpers. But I would say Golden State has a better shot than Portland.
Really?
Yes. So,
I'm really liking Portland this year, man. I think
really,
they are.
I don't think they have a shot in the world to
Interesting.
win the finals. Could they beat Houston? Absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me. I would definitely take in Houston in that 4-5 matchup, assuming it stays that way. And
I think Lillard is truly one of the most up and coming gem players in this league. So that's why
I agree, but at the same time, he's
That's
running
why
into
I'm
James
giving-
Harden, who's a top 10 player.
Yeah, that's true. Lillard might be a top 10 player though. Maybe.
No,
It's close.
he's not there yet. Could he get there? Maybe, but he's
No.
not there yet.
It could be argued.
So, do you want to move into a little bit of quick fire before we wrap this up?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Awesome. The best player that won't be in the playoffs.
Ooh, Kevin Love.
Okay. If New York doesn't make
Are we
it, I would
doing each conference? Or?
just in general
Okay.
on this question. I would say if New York doesn't make it, to be Melo.
Okay.
If New York makes it, I would agree Kevin Love. But as of next season, counting both those players, it would be Anthony Davis.
I was just thinking that. That's
Anthony
hilarious.
Davis has been absolutely incredible, and next season he's going to be a top 10 player, and he could be higher.
Yeah.
He's so efficient and so incredible, and I wanted to get a little bit of Anthony Davis love because we may not have time to do an NBA wrap-up podcast because NFL draft's coming, and that could
Right.
take up just 3-4 episodes. So, another quick fire. Who's going to win the lottery? Make a prediction. And then who do they take first? Just a quick prediction.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and say that I'm not gonna go with the popular Sixers pick. I'm gonna try and mix it up a little bit. I think it's gonna be New Orleans.
Really? They're going to
This
keep that.
needs to happen.
They're going to keep that
The
first
Drew
round
Holiday
pick.
pick.
They're going to
Yeah.
keep that and have Drew coming back. That'd be
Yep.
interesting.
That would be awesome. I think that would be the pick that would change this city and this franchise for the next 10 to 15 years.
With Anthony Davis and you, who would you pick if you were them? Because I think that
That's tough. There's a lot of really good players.
because what they really need is another
Big.
big, and there's no one that you would take there because do they take a huge risk on Embiid and hope his back stays healthy, or do you take a wing player and then try to move Eric Gordon and just move him for
Or do you
whatever
look
you
at
can get?
Exum?
He's obviously the wild card.
He's a huge wild card because we just don't know. Or, I would think though that they're in a
I
position
think there would be
to take BPA, and I think that means Wiggins.
Yeah,
So
I don't
would
think there's.
expect him to be
I
the
think
one
the
taking
least
that.
likely pick out of the 4 or 5 so-called first pick potentials would be Parker
Yeah.
because they don't really need that much. They don't need scoring as much as they need defense, in my opinion.
Yeah, or could you see? I mean, I'm just throwing this out there because this is a hypothetical conversation. Could you see them taking a guy like Payne?
As the first overall pick, 100% no
I've heard
fucking
he's
way.
moved his way into the top 10.
He could be in the top 10, but you don't take Adrian Payne first.
Hey, I didn't think Anthony Bennett was going to go first, but
Yeah, but he was still top 5 on
Yeah,
almost all the mocks.
it's true.
Adrian Payne is creeping his way into the back
Right.
end of the lottery.
I don't know. I just thought it was interesting because he can shoot the three, so it was
Right.
just, or at least the long range, and
Right.
No.
I will.
Let's hear what you have to say, my friend.
The Utah Jazz,
Really?
and then they will draft Jabari Parker,
Oh my gosh.
who almost went to
perfect.
BYU. And if you don't know, he is, would fit in very well in the Utah State. We'll just leave it at that. And with that team, he'd be fantastic because if they lose Gordon Hayward or don't want to pay him the max deal that he potentially could get as a restricted free agent,
Yeah.
then you can slide him right in. Maybe with their other picks, try to find a defensive two guard. So you can go Burke, defensive veteran two guard, Parker, Favors, Cantor, have Burkspear, really good 6-man because apparently they don't want to start him. Even though I really like Alec Burks, and I think that they would be guaranteed to pick Parker. There's no way they would pick anyone else.
Is it?
I mean, unless Michael Jordan's coming back into the draft at 19 again
Right.
or something, but
Is Milwaukee destined
for
to
Andrew
draft
Wiggins, no,
Mar-
they're destined for Andrew Wiggins.
Really? I was gonna share a different name.
Really?
Marcus Smart. I just feel like they're the type team that would take him, and it would totally make Milwaukee completely irrelevant again.
I don't think
Their
he
roster
goes there.
doesn't need him necessarily right now.
No, the
I mean,
roster needs.
Everything.
I think that they will fall and go to 4, and they'll be the team that drops out of the top 3. But then they'll get Embiid, and they'll stay healthy, and they'll start to turn that team around with him.
Hopefully.
And the Greek Freak. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
So they could easily have something built in there. They need to stop signing these random veterans to 4-year contracts, $6 million each. OJ Mayo. They're not helping them. Why'd they even make a move for Cron Butler?
Okay.
They have
so
really
here's-
bad management.
Here's a question. Do you know off the top of your head what Cleveland's likelihood of landing a lottery pick is? Or is it just as good as all the other ones outside of
Well, it's all different percentages, and since they are going to finish probably 10th in the Eastern Conference, they're not going to have the greatest chance, but it's all based off record after you're not in. So you just look at the record and you can kind of figure it out that way. So
What team do you look at and say, if this team gets one of those top 4 players, they are legitimately a contender to make the second round of the playoffs? Or
I will say this team could make it to the conference finals if they won the lottery, and that'd be the Minnesota Timberwolves. If they won the lottery
wow.
and drafted Andrew Wiggins to provide a defensive wing who can also score a bit,
Yeah,
they could make a huge jump.
I could see
Huge jump.
I could see that.
Because they already have a legit number 1. They have other players who can score like Kevin Martin. They can have Wiggins be their wing stopper / future number 1, number 2 option.
Yep.
They can kind of rotate Pekovic and Gorgie Deng, who's had an incredible last couple months when he's finally gotten playing time. Ricky Rubio is a very good defender, very good at facilitating the offense. If he ever could find a jump shot, he could be worth that contract they gave him. I mean, that's a team that can make a huge jump. I mean,
like that.
you look at New York, but they wouldn't even have their pick. So technically, if New York didn't have it, that means Denver would win the lotto, and they would be interesting as well. But I think they have a lot of issues, and you're just lacking a few more things than
They'd
Minnesota
probably
would
take
be.
Embiid. I feel like they'd be a prime spot for him as well.
Yeah, they could because they have Gallinari and they have Fournier and they have Wilson Chandler and they have Randy Foy. They have a lot of guys on the wing, and their best player Ty Lawson. They're not going to pick a point guard, so Embiid could be the number 1 pick in that scenario. But another question, quick fire on the last couple ones as we round up. Maybe this will just be our version of the NBA wrap up. MVP.
I say it's time to pass the torch to Kevin Durant because he kept his team stable through the Russell Westbrook injuries, and he's led the league in scoring. He's become better in the assist category, while also playing good defense.
I agree. LeBron has made an incredible late push to make it a lot closer statistically, but at the same time, Durant has just done so much. Westbrook missed so much time, and I want him to get it, and I think he should get it as well.
Yeah.
Coach of the Year,
Oh, without question, Jeff Hornacek.
really?
Yes.
Greg Popovich.
Okay. I mean, don't get me
Hornacek would be
wrong.
my number 2, and then I'd probably go Thibodeau 3.
Yeah, I love. I mean, you cannot knock what San Antonio is doing.
Yep.
So I can't disagree with you there.
I think Hornacek will win though because
Yeah.
the best coach a lot of times has one of the best records like Popovich and like Phil Jackson, Jerry Sloan for a while. Rick Carlisle is an incredible coach, and then you can look at any support. How many times has Bill Belichick won?
jeez.
You know, how many times should he have won? You made the argument.
Right.
You know, things like that. So I think Hornacek will win, but I think it's Popovich.
Okay.
And I would have no issue with Hornacek winning.
Yeah.
No one saw this team being
No.
this good.
He resurrected Green's career pretty much. Like,
Right.
turned him into a legit possible all-star.
Most disappointing player. And obviously, I'm just talking more of a star type player, not just like some random bench warmer.
Ooh, that is tough. If we're gonna go ahead and just say something, because we talked about it earlier and we kind of touched on it, I'd say I'll give you two, just
Okay.
because I think that makes it a little bit more fair.
Right.
Dwight Howard,
Okay.
I've been a little bit disappointed. I really thought that he would have increased his rebounds to get into that DeAndre, Kevin Love conversation again, because I totally think he's capable of it. And I thought we'd see a little bit more scoring from him. And the other guy would probably be Paul George. Just because we expected him to take such a big step, and he just pretty much took a side step, which is fine. But at the same time, those would probably be my two biggest disappointments.
Okay, I'll give you a couple. Roy Hibbert, we already talked about him. Super disappointing to me.
Yep.
Josh Smith,
Yeah.
been a train wreck this year, and he's one of my favorite players because I love everything he can bring to the table, but he's been one of the worst shooters in the league and been an absolute train wreck. And then the last one I want to mention is Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
Now, I know he's a young guy, but you can attest to this. I was really sold on that guy making a huge step this year and getting a lot more advanced statistically because there's no one on that team to really score a rebound, and he was hurt, wasn't efficient. He said he was going to be an all-star this year. He didn't live up to his own hype. And I know it's kind of weird to pick a young player that isn't a star yet, who doesn't fall yet, but I just was expecting huge things from him. And I was very disappointed.
Especially, on a team where you get every opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. He wasn't even starting every game. So, most surprising player. And once again, with the caveat that it's more of a well-known type star player.
Gosh.
Because I think that's a better category than most improved. So
I would like to, So I'll say a couple names again just to make the conversation a little bit more well-rounded.
Right.
Patrick Beverley would be one because we saw him be tremendous in the playoffs last year, and a lot of us were wondering, is this the type of longevity we can expect, or is this him coming off the bench and just playing his heart out, and that's what it is?
right.
And I think he really showed that he could sustain that type of success. And then I guess my other most surprising player would be Kyle Lowry. You know, he's been solid, he's been consistent, and now that ever since the Rudy Gay trade, Toronto, they really stepped it up. Obviously, Amir Johnson's a part of that, and we don't want to forget about DeMar DeRozan, one of the coolest names in sports. Really had a great year. But I think Kyle Lowry was the glue that held it all together. So, what are a couple players for you?
We already mentioned him, Goran Dragic.
Yeah.
And a guy we haven't mentioned,
That'd probably be number one,
yeah,
by the way.
and a team that we didn't really talk about, but is very improved with a very good young coach, new coach, Charlotte Bobcats and Al Jefferson.
Yeah.
Al Jefferson improved his game defensively this year. He's passable now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say he's good, but he was pretty atrocious in Minnesota as a young player and not that good in Utah at all. But he is a dominant low post scorer on the block, and I just really want him to get a little bit of love. And I'm really happy with the way that season's worked out. Kemba Walker is starting to get a little bit more consistent and healthy. That team has really kind of found its way as a hard-nosed defensive team with the legit number one option on offense. So Al Jefferson, I think, I hope he makes an All-NBA team, like All-NBA third team. I don't know if it'll happen, but that'd be really nice to see. So
also DeAndre, but we already kind of mentioned some of these guys. So.
So, anything else you want to add, Kyle Smith? We're both kind of, we want to watch the national title game tonight. Do you want to get a prediction on the record? Kentucky,
sure.
UConn?
Jeez. You go first on this prediction.
Okay.
Because I'm curious to see what you say.
I probably watch more college basketball than you do, as you would, admit to, which is fine. As you definitely watch more NFL draft videos than I do. Everyone has their areas of strengths and weaknesses. I had Florida in my bracket, and a lot of people did, and I was very surprised that they lost. And I watched the Kentucky-Wisconsin game, this last 10 minutes of it, and I will say that they seem like they just have that it factor, you know?
Yeah.
But at the same time, Shabazz Napier is just willing this Connecticut team and Ryan Boatright, them two have been incredibly good defensively, and now DeAndre Daniels is starting to get in there too as that athletic forward guy, and I love Kevin Ollie, and this is going to be a very good game in my opinion, and I'm going to take Kentucky. I think it's going to be a very close game. I'm going to take Kentucky, and I also have a feeling that both of these coaches could be in the NBA very soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they could. Calipari, I think he got that, taste of the NBA. It didn't work out, and I think he wants that on his resume. And I think that he's going to go to the NBA soon. I don't know if it'll be this year.
Yeah.
I think he could get there, and I know I've heard interviews, on other podcasts like the BS Report on ESPN and the Lowdown from Zach Lowe from Grantland, and they both talk about how NBA executives love Kevin Ollie, and he was a longtime veteran, and I know he kind of was a little bit of a mentor to LeBron and Kevin Durant, so he kind of has the ear of the younger players, so I feel like both of them could be in the NBA fairly soon.
Not to mention, Ollie looks like he's never aged, so...
Yeah, he looks like he could play. If Derek Fisher's still playing, you can't tell me Kevin Ollie can't hit a couple shots and, run a team a little bit in the half court.
Yeah, why not,
Yeah, that's probably why Napier's playing so good. He has to go up against Kevin Ollie in practice.
Where was he when the Mavericks were using Michael James last year?
Oh, Lord.
Either way, I'm going to have to go ahead and why not make this interesting? So the thing I like about Kentucky is that they're so young all over the place, but that kind of scares me as far as this game's concerned. I mean, obviously, we talked about the Phoenix factor earlier, which was the too young, reckless to care. But I think Napier is going to lead the UConn to victory. I think he's the savvy type of player. The same reason why I bet on Michigan to make, or once they started doing all that work last year, I had Trey Burke, as the guy that I thought was moving that team forward. And I think that he's going to be the guy for UConn tonight. To any of the UConn alumni or people going there that saw the RA letter on Twitter today, be sure to give that guy whipped cream pie in the face because he needs to enjoy his life a little bit more. We're not just rooting for laundry. So that being said, take it easy, folks.
Well, we can't talk about the NBA playoffs without doing finals predictions.
Okay.
This has been one of the smoothest time-wise podcasts we've ever done. So we're just going to do NBA finals and then we're going to call it good. So Kyle, you go first because you made me go first. So give me the East team, the West team, and the winner. You don't got to really break down if you don't want to. Let's just get predictions out there.
So I'm going to go ahead and say what I said since day one. I'm not going to deter from the path. I'm going to say it's OKC, Miami, and Miami is just too tough to handle, wins it in 7.
They're going to get the three-peat?
Yep.
Okay. Well, I can't say, I could say, because I said Chicago was going to win, but that's mainly because I felt Derrick Rose would be back.
Most popular teams, too.
Right.
I mean, not like I don't know
so,
basketball, but still.
Giving them my winner is not a quote-unquote realistic option. I'm going to go Miami, San Antonio, and I think San Antonio will get it done, and then Pop and Duncan will retire.
Really?
Yes.
That's such a cool ending. If Miami wins, does Ray Allen retire?
Yes, Ray Allen's done. Battier's already announced this is last year.
Yep.
Miami, regardless if they win or lose, is going to look radically different next year. They're looking really old. They're starting to age. I feel like LeBron's coming back. Bosh coming back. Wade's coming back. I could see Wade exercising his free agency option and then re-signing.
For cheap.
Yes. For,
awesome.
Not like way less, but like 10 flat maybe.
Yeah.
Because he's still worth it, but he's obviously has to miss games because of his knee issues.
Yeah.
Bosh is still a max player pretty much.
Dude.
LeBron obviously is. But, they have a lot of expiring deals. I don't see Beasley coming back. Greg Oden signed to a second year, so he might get that 8-10 minutes a game still. But I don't think Norris Cole, he might have an option.
There's guys that want to come there.
Yeah, so I feel like this team,
Matt Barnes on this
team could look radically different. So with that said, enjoy the NBA playoffs. It's going to be crazy as usual.
You stay classy.